This is now the 11th day of a paralyzed Congress. House Republicans are continuing their scramble to try to fill the position of House Speaker as Kevin McCarthy was ousted. And obviously it becomes more and more of an important issue as war continues in Israel and the clock continues to tick towards November 17th, which is when our government funding deadline takes place. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise withdrew his name from contention last night as it became apparent that he simply didn't have the votes to assume the speakership. So what now? Where do we stand in all of this? Is there going to be consensus anytime in the near future? Well, joining me now by Zoom to discuss this and the latest developments is Kerry Picket. She's a senior congressional reporter at the Washington Times. She's been staked out all afternoon in the hallways as the GOP has been in conference. Kerry, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Congressman. I got to tell you, you are definitely, I'm sure your old stomping grounds. It's the same old stuff up here, but different situation, of course. As you mentioned, Mr. Scalise, the majority leader, he stepped away, but we are in this very similar situation that we had yesterday. Unfortunately for Mr. Jordan, while he had enough votes to get nominated, he just doesn't have enough votes to become officially Speaker if the votes were to come to the floor. So in the first round, he was about 90 some odd votes short. In the second round, he was about 70 some odd votes short. He was going up against Austin Scott, and he's a Georgia congressman, of course. Many people thought that Mr. Scott was a sort of a proxy sort of candidate going up against Mr. Jordan, maybe a protest candidate. But still, as of now, even though Mr. Jordan is the official nominee for the GOP, he still is short, several votes or a number of votes. He's going to have to make up that gap. Right now, the Republicans have left, and they are planning on coming back Monday. Some are saying maybe to bring it to the floor, but maybe to bring it to the floor on Tuesday. That is still being hashed out right now.
Okay, Kerry, so this is obviously going to drag into next week. So where do we go from here? Jim Jordan, the official candidate, will they come back next week and vote exclusively just on him and see how many votes he's going to have? And if he does not have 217, what happens?
Well, that is a big question. You see, you have a faction of Republicans who are saying, look, guys, we have to just make sure that before we go onto the floor that we have 217. So over the weekend, you're going to have the Jordan team. We're going to be whipping votes to make sure that he has the support he needs. So then when they go to the floor, they can be confident that they're not going to go into 15 rounds like Mr. McCarthy did back in January. And so at that point, the Republicans and the Democrats can start to legislate. And as we obviously are seeing right now in the Middle East, there's lots of horrific situations happening there. There's already a bipartisan resolution right now to deal with this. But as of now, the floor is paralyzed.
Yeah, I mean, that is the whole point right here. We have Congress that is paralyzed, and there are so many major decisions that are facing the world and facing our own Congress right here, from a deadline coming up in November 17th with our own government funding, but then you add what's happening in Israel and so forth. I mean, these are major issues. Now, you mentioned a while ago that some are looking at Austin Scott's position as perhaps a protest vote. Do you think that that really is what's going on here? And is that protest, in your opinion, going to linger? Or do you think Jim Jordan perhaps is going to have the ability to tie back in some unity?
I think the Austin Scott vote is not going to linger that much. I think that sometimes, as you very well know, they like to make sure that there doesn't appear to be a coronation for whoever is eventually the nominee. And now that we're going into next week, I think there's going to be even more pressure to make sure that there's some sort of speaker. And keep in mind, there's also a huge faction of Republicans who are saying, look, we don't care who it is at this point, whether it's Mr. Jordan or if it's Mr. McCarthy or if it's Mr. Scalise, just give us a speaker so we can move forward at this point.
Well, it's going to be extremely interesting to see what happens. Is there sentiment that you believe in terms of all that's happening around the world right now to get this resolved pretty quickly?
As time moves on, I think there's more lawmakers who are coming around to that. The problem here, Mr. Heiss, though, is that you have this extraordinarily small margin. And the thing here is that as long as you only have four Republicans who have issues with the Republican nominee, whether it's Mr. Jordan, whether it's Mr. Scalise, or whomever they put up, they can hold up this particular speaker nominee. Doesn't matter who it is.
Well, listen, I want to thank you so much, Kerry, for joining us. Thanks for all the work you do with Washington Times. We appreciate it very much. Thank you for coming on Washington Watch.